Hey guys, it's Leah Michelle from Resistance Chicks. Today is Wednesday, July 19th, 2017. So what's really going on with the healthcare bill? I don't think we'll ever know. It changes. It's like the weather here in Cincinnati.
Weekend at Bernie's. It's dead, it's alive, it's dead, it's alive, it's dead. Kill it. Seriously, there's a lot going on. Trump doesn't want anybody going to recess until they got something going on it. Trump is still at the point where he really does want to replace as he repeals, but Rand Paul and a lot of others, GOP people are saying, fine, let's just repeal it. And then we've got a 2-year gap. So stick with me because I want to play this. This is kind of a 2-section thing on one video. The first is why you have to repeal Obamacare. The second is insurance is not health care. So stick with us.
The last thing that our healthcare system needs right now. It will drive price increases more than anything else. And now that the GOP bill has died, that's exactly what we have, is more uncertainty. So what will happen next? Well, there is a call to repeal without replacing. There was a tweet just sent out. Republicans should just repeal failing Obamacare now and work a new health care plan that will start from a clean slate. Dems will join in. This comes from the president. Is that the way forward? Joining us now, Republican Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio. Always good to see you, sir. The Freedom Caucus has a different idea, which is, look, let's just do a straight repeal bill right now, get an up and down vote on it, and move from there. Would you be in favor of that?
Yeah, totally in favor of that because, Chris, that's what we told the American people we were going to do. Remember, our repeal legislation has a 2-year wind down, so a 2-year phase in gives us time to work on the replacement. This is what we told the American people we were going to do. This is what we passed last Congress. So let's put the same thing on President Trump's desk that we put on then President Obama's desk. It will be a different outcome. President Trump will sign it. Then we can come together and work on a replacement to deal with those key issues that will bring down premiums for middle-class families.
Now watch Jake Tapper because he is a few nuggets short of a Happy Meal.
The criticism is casualties, that what you guys call tax savings really takes the form and practicality of subsidies and money that the most needy, the most vulnerable among your voters needs to support their health care, and you'd be taking all that.
Chris, the casualties are right now. Crawford County, Ohio, a county I get the privilege of representing, has no insurers in the exchange plans right now. The casualties are what Obamacare has done to premiums for middle-class and working-class families in the small group and individual market. Casualties is what we currently have. That's what has to change. That's what the American people elected Republicans to do in 2010, 2014, right, and of course last November. So let's just simply do what we said. Repeal it, then replace it. The president is exactly right. 2 separate bills. Do the first one. Have a wind down period. During that wind down period, work on the replacement to deal with it. If you're accurate that this uncertainty is there, I think it's Obamacare is driving up the cost and driving up the uncertainty right now, not the fact that we haven't done legislation. But if you're right, we'll have time to work on a replacement. Let's do that strategy. Repeal and replace. In fact, Freedom Caucus, we introduced that same piece of legislation, that clean repeal, back during the House debate, back this early this spring. We reintroduced that same, I reintroduced it, that same piece of legislation, that clean repeal. Let's focus on that.
Didn't it fail in part because it wasn't a good idea, even though it was a simple promise? It didn't make the situation better. How does pulling all of the subsidies and money that people need
Obama didn't sign it.
Need to finance their health care, how is taking all of that and passing it on to tax cuts to whomever you want, how does that make it better?
Chris, it's a good idea because it's what we told the American people we were going to do and what they elected us to do. And it always had, and it's the same thing we passed last Congress. If it was good enough last Congress, this is what drives American voters crazy. If it was good enough last Congress, why isn't it good enough this Congress when it really counts? So let's pass that. Let's
why isn't it though? Congressman, answer your own question. Why do you think all these senators in your party and House members in your party didn't like the reality of who that money was going to be taken away from?
Well, I think saying you don't want to vote on it is different than actually when it's put in front of you. I always tell people that's why they play the game on Friday night. If you just went with the conventional wisdom, the underdog would never win. So let's actually put it out there and see what happens when the roll call is actually called, when it's time to actually put up the vote, and see what members do in light of what they did last Congress, what they told the American people for 6 years they were going to do. So let's bring it up for a vote. If conventional wisdom would have been, the Super Bowl would have been over after 3 quarters last year, but the New England Patriots and Tom Brady didn't think that. So let's call up the vote and let's see what happens. I actually think there's a good chance it passes, which is, again, exactly what we told the American people we were going to do.
So what happens if you were to vote on a straight repeal and all that money is taken out of the system? Then in the interim between when you have that vote and how you figure out how to replace it, what happens to all those people who need the subsidies?
This is like when you think you're talking to me, and then you're like,
she's not listening.
No.
Who need Medicaid to get health care.
Chris, I'll say it for the 3rd time. The bill we passed last Congress, the same bill we reintroduced this Congress, has a 2-year time period on it, so that nothing changes in that 2-year time period. So but you've repealed it and say effective date is in the future. But in that time period, then you now have the catalyst to actually get to the replacement. And I think, frankly, you might have the better ability to bring Democrats and Republicans together, like Senator McCain and others have talked about, to actually say, okay, here's some things we can do on Medicaid, here's some things we can do with the opioid problem. But at the same time, we want some of these key policy changes that we believe will bring down premiums, like easier formation of association health plans, like interstate shopping for insurance, like greater access and ability to use your health savings account.
Why don't you just pitch those instead of a straight repeal? Why don't you pitch the ideas for how to tighten up certain of the exchanges, mostly in states where they didn't expand Medicaid, and you don't have enough young people coming into the market, which is a fundamental problem with insurance. Why don't you do it that way instead of going straight repeal when it's so controversial?
2 things. We should talk about all that and try to bring that together. But the main thing I keep coming back to is, what did we tell the American people we were going to do? We told them we were going to repeal it. We know what it has caused. Crawford County, Ohio, in the 4th District of Ohio, which I represent, no exchange plans. We know how bad it is. So let's.
Why are there no exchange plans in Crawford, Ohio?
Well, because of Obamacare, like it's so expensive right now. They're not even there's no plan for them to even to go to if they're in the Obamacare exchange right now because of how bad this law is.
But don't the
That's
insurers
why it has to change?
Don't the insurers that pulled out of there and the ones who refused to go in, don't they say there aren't enough young, healthy people in that county system for them to support the pricing model?
Well, you're right. That's one of the flaws of Obamacare is a lot of young, healthy people say, I'm not going to pay these exorbitant premiums. I'm not going to pay $400 a month for a $6,000 deductible plan. That's what we're trying to change. So let's get rid of the law and let's work on bringing back those things that will lower those premiums, giving more choice, allowing consumers to pick the kind of plan that actually fits their needs and their family's needs. That's what we're focused on doing. So let's do that approach again. After all, that's what we told the American people we're going to do. That's what they elected us to do.
I get it, but there's the impact of a promise also. But we'll have to see if this is the way forward for your party. If this is the way they go with this bill, we're going to.
That was hard.
At the end, he had to admit that he had just lost this one, which I found really enjoyable and satisfying because I really like it when those CNN news
those states
anchors
are good
realize
compared to some of the numbers.
They had no idea what they were talking about, and they just have to fold that hand.
Right.
I lost that one.
Okay, hang on.
Big time.
Despite the promise that premiums would decrease by $2,500 on average, they've actually increased by almost $3,000, and even much more than that in some cases. It's crushing the middle class and the families of the middle class. It's frankly crushing our country. Obamacare was a big lie. You can keep your doctor, lie. You can keep your plan, lie. It was a lie directly from the president. You can keep your doctor, you can keep your plan. 28 times he said it. 28 times. And it was a lie, and he knew it was. And now it's hurting this country irreparably. Premiums are so high that 6.5 million Americans chose to pay a fine to the IRS instead of buying insurance, the famous mandate. We will pay not to take the insurance. People don't understand that. They don't even understand what it is or what it represents.
Okay, so, that's not the one I want.
I just want to, Leah and I had decided that we were going to do that. We are amongst those people. So thank God, because Trump came into office, that we didn't end up having to do it, but we had already made the decision that we were going to.
Okay, so to fix healthcare, we need to repeal a lot more than Obamacare. Now, I know that a lot of people want this single payer as socialists and progressives, and I understand that you want people to have access to health care. We want everyone to have access to health care, but having access to insurance is different than having access to health care,
which is
and
so
having
important.
Good health. And so stick with me. This is a lot like the whole uncovering Syria thing, and I know it makes people bite their nails and they get all upset and they get real angry. They just want to just go to bed at night and think the government is going to pay for everybody's medical stuff.
Right.
They don't even want to think about it.
Right.
They don't want to recognize that Obamacare was a fraud, that Obama lied, that I know no less than I can just, right off the top of my head, 10 people I know personally who don't have insurance right now because it's too expensive, and they had insurance,
good insurance
with their family, or their family is having to live subpar standard living because
in order to afford the insurance that is costing over half of their income.
Well, one family of 4 was paying $400 a month. Now they pay $1,200 a month. It's insanity. I got a friend of mine who makes a decent living. She's a single mom, but it was going to be $600 a month for her to cover herself insurance-wise. She says, you know what I could do for my kids at $600 a month? I'm going without insurance.
I don't mean to be mean, but because you went to public schools, you're too trusting.
Right.
Yeah.
And those who like the single payment progressives, you guys are too trusting.
Right.
We are in a system that is corrupt and everybody's lying.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are ways that you can get good health, but they won't let you because they want to poison everybody.
Well, and we're going to get to that. So, are you going to go into that in this segment?
And my point is, don't be so trusting.
Right, exactly. I want to point out the corruption, and if you understood, you understand there's corruption in the pharmaceutical company, but understanding the corruption within the insurance companies themselves and lauding them up and bailing them out. You didn't want, I don't think a lot of you, Bernie Sanders really didn't want the bailouts to happen. This is an insurance bailout. Now, for big companies with big CEOs making big salaries.
But this is an area where it kind of confuses me a little bit, that the progressives that are anti-big crony capitalism really shore up and make sure that there's all kinds of building blocks holding up Big Pharma, which is actually not only the epitome, but the quintessential example of crony capitalism and taking advantage of people.
I want to take you a tiny bit beyond Obamacare, okay? Because everybody's been focusing on Obamacare, but the repeal of which would only return us to the bad old days of 2013, when the healthcare sector was already long overregulated, distorted, subsidized, and made far more expensive than would be the case in a regular functioning marketplace. And I want you to see here that by the time Obamacare was passed, the U.S. had already been piling on regulations and subsidies in the healthcare sector for more than 70 years. It wasn't until the 1960s that a real crisis began to appear on the horizon. The U.S. health care cost crisis didn't start until 1965. The government increased demand with the passage of Medicare and Medicaid while restricting. Now, this is a key. We have a dear friend we were sitting down to. He's a nurse practitioner. And he says to us, and then I further researched it, you know, they limit the number of doctors that are in this country. Did you know that 46,000, I believe it was 46,000 highly qualified. These are like genius people. These are, they get through the admissions process. These are great people who want to help heal you. But the government is restricting your access to a doctor to hype up the demand. They increase the demand, and then they restrict the access to the actual medical doctors so that the ones that are there get a certain income.
what would happen if all of a sudden, instead of there being 10 doctors that get paid $500,000, we now had 50 doctors? What would happen? There would be competition, and the pay to those doctors would go down because they would be forced to compete for prices. But we don't have that when they say, you know what, 40 of you doctors are not allowed to be doctors.
Here's this. This is from 1996, okay? Since the American Medical Association began restricting medical education, they restrict. No other education in this country is restricted but medical education, from what I understand. You want to go be a lawyer? You can just go take the bar and be a lawyer. But they restrict medical doctors, much like they do with our food, which is killing us as well. Does she need to go out?
Maybe. Go ahead. Keep going.
Let's see. The U.S. population has increased by 284%, while the number of medical schools has declined by 26% to 123. In 1996, the peak year for applications, only 16,500 candidates were accepted out of 47,000, while high rejection rates can be common in many schools. Applicants to medical schools they already go through a very costly admissions price. I mean, they've already gone through college. They know they have what it takes to be a doctor.
And it says they are usually among the brightest and highest quality students and have put themselves through the...
It's very expensive to apply to medical school. The medical monopoly also marginalizes or outlaws alternative or slightly alternative competing medical practices. This is where my progressive friends and my leftist friends, I don't understand you. Because Medicare doesn't even pay for holistic doctors. You want to go get some herbs to heal you? Medicare and Medicaid, they're not going to pay for that. They're not going to pay. Sometimes they'll pay for chiropractic work, but they don't pay for the holistic doctors. If you look them up, which we have, a very few of them. It's not that they won't accept insurance; it's that insurances don't accept them.
Exactly.
Because, and here's the thing, what insurance does is they create this middleman, so that you, the consumer, don't know the actual cost of what a procedure is. When you break down procedures, you're like, I went to the hospital and they charged me $200 for a Tylenol?
Right.
What is this?
Which is true, that they do.
That's exactly what happens. So we have government cronyism, corporate cronyism, and it's all in the medical field.
And Obamacare, it was put in there
worse
to support and hold up this corrupt industry. It is not about getting access of health care to poor people.
Right, exactly.
That's not at all what it is. And if you think that, then you're not actually red-pilled and enlightened. I'm sorry. The only thing that Obamacare was there for was to prop up the big pharma and crony insurance companies and the medical industry
This
itself.
is so deep, you guys. You have to understand this. This should be its own little episode.
They want to make people sick because it means big money.
Right. So here's the thing. Then there's this artificially inflated demand that since the early 1900s, medical special interests have been lobbying politicians to reduce competition. Is this okay for you? Medical specialists lobbying politicians to reduce the competition to make you sicker.
Which is exactly the same thing that Big Egg does.
Exactly.
The whole thing is about, and that's why everybody's like, you know what? They tell you you can't drink raw milk and it's illegal because it will kill you. No, Big Dairy goes in and says lobbyists to get rid of the little, it's all lies. It's all a house of cards. I am flabbergasted by the amount of people today that still think that raw milk is dangerous.
Exactly. By the 1980s, the U.S. was restricting the supply of physicians, hospitals, insurance, and pharmaceuticals while subsidizing the demand. Okay, they've done this for food. This is how food stamps started, right? They got an over surplus of food that they subsidized that wasn't healthy for you.
Right.
Right? Since then, the U.S. has been trying to control high costs by moving towards something perhaps best described as the House budget by the House Budget Committee in too many areas of the economy, especially energy, housing, finance, and healthcare. Free enterprise has given way to government control in partnership with a few large or politically well-connected companies. Now, did you know that in order to even build a hospital, you have to get your government's permission, and it has to be a need-based. You can't just build a hospital because you want to help people,
right,
and you want to treat people,
right.
The government has to. We have to control the supply of doctors and hospitals, so it's not cheaper.
And that's what we're about to get to. That's a pig. We're going to get to real healthcare.
Right. I want to go in here. This is even deeper.
When it probably wasn't even in focus. Let me have it, Mom.
It doesn't focus.
You guys, listen to this about how the health insurance system where we got to today. During the 30s and 40s, the main boost to the health insurance industry came from new legislation and administrative rulings. State-level legislations were passed to allow prepayment plans, such as Blue Cross and Blue Shield programs, to obtain non-profit, tax-exempt status, and then to offer insurance coverage without the reverse requirements imposed on commercial insurance companies. More importantly, insurance programs benefited greatly from the Federal Stabilization Act of 1942, which allowed companies facing scarce labor during a time of price and wage control to compete for this labor by offering health insurance benefits and by making those benefits exempt from payroll taxes. Now, other forms of health care besides insurance did not get those same tax benefits.
Right.
So you have doctors on the side, right, who may not be in this particular insurance pool, and they don't get the tax benefit. And so it was all connected, and with the successive legislation rulings, commercial insurance entered the healthcare market more willingly, and employers began to offer health insurance to employees on a very large scale. Okay, but then in 1945, buyer monopolization began after the McCarran-Ferguson Act, led by the Roosevelt administration, exempted the business and medical insurance from most federal regulation, including antitrust laws. In 1946, institutional provider monopolization begun after favored hospitals received federal subsidies, matching grants and loans provided under the Hospital Survey and Construction Act passed during the Truman administration. So states have also been exempting nonprofit hospitals from antitrust laws. And in 1951, employers started to become the dominant third-party insurance buyer. And with all of these things that were happening, you didn't, with this insurance-centric plan, by tax-exempt statuses, you don't have health care for people anymore. We have a Ponzi scheme, a scheme.
This has to be put out there. You don't know the truth of the corruption of what we like to call sick care. It's not health care, it's sick care. Health care would be these pictures that you see behind you. Deregulation of people to be able to farm on their own land, to catch their own rainwater, to drink and buy raw milk,
to sell any wholesome products that you create,
to butcher a pig and be able to sell packages of that meat. Right now you have to sell half a hog while it's still alive, and then it has to be butchered at another butcher, and all this stuff. All of that doesn't make any sense. We have cottage food laws or unlaws or restrictions all over the place, which means that if you bake a plate of cookies in a lot of places, you can't sell that to your neighbor unless it's inspected. Okay, this is insanity, and we've reached a place in society.
What was it the one guy said? Let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. How is that in any of this healthcare stuff we're talking about?
I take my uncle to his doctor, and I love this doctor a lot. I mean, he's phenomenal as far as caring and working within the knowledge that he has. But nowhere in the healthcare for my uncle does the doctor ever say, are you eating organic food? Are you drinking raw milk? And giving all of these answers that actually can create a healthy person. Instead, he's always asking, is there anything else I can prescribe for you?
That's the question that he's always asking.
Is there anything else I can prescribe? They are peddlers for medicine, because I don't know if you guys know this. You have to know this, and if you don't, I'm sorry. These drug reps go into these doctors' offices and they push their medicine so that the doctors then push, and they get kickbacks for pushing
they get
this
vaccine
medicine.
kickbacks from insurance companies. If you if pediatricians fully vaccinate, they get like giant bonuses per child,
which you would think doesn't make any sense.
So they strong arm moms who come in, and if you don't vaccinate, then like you're not even allowed to be part of their practice sometimes.
Yeah.
But a wholesome living, like Thomas Jefferson said, you know, the healthiest way of living is working outside, working with your hands, moving our bodies. And none of that is actually promoted by the government. It's so funny. They will promote Medicare or Medicaid or Obamacare or Obama phones and all these different, you know, even like food stamps. But it all goes back to the deep state. It all goes back to the Federal Reserve. It all goes back to people being sick, and no one's ever near to God than in a garden, and they've made it illegal to heal yourself. I mean, you literally, an antidepressant is putting your hand in the dirt, but do you hear a doctor saying, go garden and put your hands in the dirt, and then you won't need Prozac?
Right.
But they will provide you with a pill.
Right.
Their nature has ways. I've showed you before all of our natural healing. Now, granted, we need doctors. There are times when you're working on something and you cut your arm off. I'm hoping somebody can put it back on, right? There are times when you might get a cancer. There are times when you need medical attention.
Right.
But
by and large, a lot of medical issues that we see, what you're suffering day in and day out, arthritis, like Leah said, depression, IBS, things like that, can be solved by taking a holistic and naturalistic
and
approach.
I don't have all the answers for that. But the ones who are the holistic doctors who are out there, they are demonized,
killed,
and
literally.
they're not subsidized through insurance, and they're very hard to find. These are the doctors who are the general practitioners who care about people.
Right.
It's very hard to even find a general practitioner.
Right.
Everybody has to go to urgent care nowadays, so you get a nurse practitioner because most doctors specialize now, and you get just the specialists that come through. Whereas if we had the 46,000 extra doctors a year, or whatever, 30,000 extra doctors a year coming in every year, flooding the market with new ideas, innovation, we would have a whole different CDC. We would have a whole different vaccine schedule if we had one at all. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just want to give people actual real answers. One of the biggest culprits for, I'm going to just throw this out there as complete guess, I want to say at least 50% of, and I think it's higher than this, of our health problems is caused by issues in the gut. Weight gain, depression, arthritis, you name it, run the gambit. A lot of it is caused by issues in our gut. The only way to heal that is to stop using things like antibiotics, antibacterial stuff, the chemicals that are in your lotions, in your shampoos. We talk about this stuff all the time, but in case you missed it, there is fluoride in your water that is killing you. There is chlorine in your water that is killing you and making you sick. And instead of telling you all of these things, I take my uncle to the dentist and I watch a big propaganda program of telling you to only buy bottled water that has fluoride in it, when fluoride itself is making people
But
sick.
you can heal your gut. I mean, just getting out there and put your hands in
the dirt.
In the dirt, having even Dr. Axe says getting kisses from your dog because of different bacteria you get, good bacteria. You need good bacteria in your body. That's what raw milk has, is the good bacteria in it. You need fermented foods, like we eat the fermented cauliflower. You need these great bacterias that will help to balance out your gut. Now, we're not saying that we were perfect or that we grew up perfect. We're learning this. We're still working on it. Because everywhere we turn, I feel like we're in a box and we're hitting our head against the wall, because we have to go out, we have to be in the world, and we have to drink from drinking fountains, and we, you go somewhere and the only water they have is bottled plastic water.
Well, case in point, we have a water filter. And in our house, we go through a lot of ice. Our water filter is great for drinking water, but however, we have to use our refrigerator water filter that does our ice. So then we still have ice cubes. While they're filtered, but the filter isn't as awesome as our big Berkey type water filter, the Alexa Pure that we got from the InfoWars store. So listen, there's a lot of answers that we're learning ourselves, and we're going to give them to you. But unfortunately, the conventional eat healthy diet, eat vegetables, drink water instead of soda, all of those answers, you go to do them and you're still sick and you wonder why. Well, because your vegetables are sprayed with Roundup, which is making you ill, which is killing all the gut bacteria inside of you, which is killing
endocrine disruptors.
The water that you're drinking has the fluoride and the chlorine, and so all of these things that used to be health foods are actually a danger to eat. And so it's everywhere.
You know, a lot of people, their metabolisms were shot, their thyroids are shot.
Yeah. And your whole endocrine system kaput.
So, you know, there's ways to fix it. There's prayer. We get online and there's, you know, I think we spend a good portion of our online time figuring out how to fix
the healthiest way to live. And unfortunately, when you pull up pictures of farming, sometimes big tractors and stuff are in it. But like literally getting outside, working the land, working the soil, getting dirty. These are the real answers, because then you commune with nature and nature's God.
And if you don't have land, a lot of people have community gardens now.
Right. You have to start urban wherever you are
balcony, anything. Just put your hand in a pot.
Right. All right,
but
you guys.
the most important ingredient is love.
Right.
If
God's
you're around
love.
people who are mean and nasty and yelling and screaming, and you get angry all the time, you're mean and nasty all the time. That's why I put the pig up. Laughter is medicine.
It is. It's really true.
Love and kindness.
Like medicine.
Jesus said it's the law of kindness.
Yes, Sydney.
God is the law of kindness. Love is your number one
And this
ingredient.
is well known that stress, they always tell you, the one thing the doctors do tell you is reduce your stress, but they don't tell you how to do that. They don't give you answers. I'm telling you, if you go outside and garden and you go sit in a pig pen or whatever with your chickens, stress just goes away. So we're going to
surround yourself with positive people who lift you up, and we encourage you to surround yourself with people who love God.
Right.
Because in doing so, they're going to help, you know, bring out the best in you, and
you want to get rid of poisonous people.
Poisonous people.
That's a whole nother episode, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You already wrote it. They can Google it.
Yes, you can watch my Sin and Sickness video. All right, you guys, this is Leah Michelle signing off for Resistance Chicks, where it's not just a conspiracy theory, if it's the truth. We love you guys. God loves you. God bless.
Get yourself a pig.
Happiness runs in the circular motion.
I was cold all alone. No place for home. Every day, so afraid. But you called my name.